The spring of 2026 arrived in Central Europe with astonishing power, not the gentle warmth people had come to expect. Instead of blossoming flowers and mild breezes, the season unleashed a relentless barrage of storms, catching many off guard and shattering any sense of normalcy. The Rhine River, usually a symbol of life and commerce, became a source of alarm as it swelled with unnatural speed. Its banks, once bustling with trade and daily life, now stood threatened by the rising, muddy waters. Relentless downpours overwhelmed the land, turning every hillside and stream into raging torrents feeding the mighty Rhine. Fields and villages that had weathered countless springs before now faced a deluge unlike any in living memory. The term Thunderstorm Tsunami entered the public vocabulary. Wave-like surges driven by supercell storms, catching communities by surprise. These storms struck with little warning, their intensity magnified by a changing climate. These were not oceanic tsunamis, but their destructive force was eerily similar. Streets became rivers, and familiar landmarks vanished beneath the churning floodwaters. Walls of water raced across lakes and rivers, overwhelming defenses and flooding towns. Barriers built over generations were swept aside in moments, leaving entire communities exposed and vulnerable. The Great Flood of 2026 became a stark lesson in nature's untamable power and our changing climate. It was a disaster that spanned borders, affecting millions and leaving a mark on the collective memory of the continent. It tested the courage of ordinary people and the strength of communities from the Alps to the North Sea. Neighbors became rescuers, and strangers worked side by side to save homes and lives, forging bonds in the face of adversity. This was a story of destruction, resilience, and the urgent need to adapt to a new climate reality. As the waters receded, the true challenge began. Rebuilding not just homes, but hope, and preparing for a future where such fury might return. Two powerful and unpredictable forces defined the spring of 2026, flood surges and thunderstorm tsunamis. These events would leave a lasting mark on the landscape and the people who lived through them. A flood surge is a sudden, powerful pulse of water racing down a river, overwhelming even the strongest defenses in a matter of moments. Towns and villages that had stood for centuries found themselves vulnerable to the sheer force of nature. These surges formed when intense, relentless rain fell upstream, sending massive waves of water and debris hurtling downstream. The rivers swelled beyond their banks, carrying everything in their path. The mighty Rhine saw multiple surges combine, each one feeding the next, growing more destructive as they moved northward through the heart of Europe. Communities along the river watched in fear as the water levels rose higher than ever before. Thunderstorm tsunamis, also known as meteotsunamis, were triggered by fast-moving storms that created sudden bulges of water on lakes and wide rivers. These rare phenomena caught even seasoned meteorologists by surprise. As storms raced across the water, these bulges transformed into sudden, powerful waves that crashed onto shorelines with little warning. The force of these waves was enough to flood entire neighborhoods in minutes. People watched in disbelief as water levels dropped, then surged upward in a matter of minutes, flooding streets, homes, and businesses with astonishing speed. The unpredictability left many with no time to prepare or escape. This rare and dangerous combination of river surges and meteotsunamis made the disaster uniquely devastating. The dual threats overwhelmed emergency services and left entire regions struggling to cope. Communities were caught completely off guard, facing a force of nature few had ever imagined possible. The shock and disbelief were visible on the faces of residents as they witnessed their world change in an instant. The spring of 2026 redefined what a flood could mean for Central Europe, serving as a stark reminder of nature's power and the urgent need for new ways to protect vulnerable communities. The Rhine flood was not caused by a single storm, but by a sequence of relentless weather events. A wet winter left soils saturated, unable to absorb more rain. An omega block trapped Central Europe under a conveyor belt of warm, moist air, fueling days of intense rainfall. Storms followed each other over the same path, dumping record-breaking amounts of water into the Rhine basin. Every tributary became a torrent, pouring into the main river. The Rhine swelled to unprecedented levels, overwhelming modern engineering and memory alike. Nature's power transformed a serene river into an unstoppable force. Cologne, with its iconic cathedral, faced a flood far beyond its defenses' design. The Rhine rose rapidly, carrying debris and threatening the city's historic heart. Emergency teams and volunteers worked around the clock, stacking sandbags and reinforcing barriers. Lower districts were evacuated as water crept into streets, turning alleys into canals. Despite heroic efforts, the river overtopped defenses in places, submerging promenades and historic sites. The cathedral, on higher ground, stood as a symbol of hope and endurance. The city's spirit held strong, revealing the strength of its planning and community. Cologne's battle with the Rhine became a defining moment of resilience. In the upper Middle Rhine Valley, the flood's impact was profound. Mainz, squeezed by surges from both the Rhine and Main, saw water levels rise to historic heights. Picturesque towns along the river's edge were quickly inundated, with homes and wine cellars submerged. Lacking major defenses, residents relied on tradition, moving valuables upstairs and helping neighbors evacuate. Roads became impassable, isolating communities except by boat. The economic toll was immense, with damage to buildings, tourism, and vineyards. The flood left a lasting scar, reminding all that even storied landscapes are vulnerable to extreme weather. Behind the statistics were countless personal stories of fear and resilience. In Koblenz, Helga watched floodwaters rise outside her window, fearing for her home and memories. Volunteers, many young, formed brigades to fill sandbags, deliver supplies, and rescue the vulnerable. Kayakers navigated flooded streets to save families, acting out of pure civic duty. Anxiety and sleepless nights were common, as families waited and watched the water rise. Yet, people listened to warnings, evacuated when needed, and used social media to coordinate help. Neighbors became allies, sharing resources and support. The flood revealed not just nature's power, but the enduring strength of human compassion. The science behind the flood is actually quite straightforward. It's all about the interaction between rain, the ground, and the river. These three elements, when combined in the wrong way, can lead to devastating consequences. Immense storms stalled over the region for hours, sometimes even days, dumping relentless, heavy rain. Moist air was forced to rise and cool, causing the clouds to release even more water than usual. This wasn't just a passing shower, it was a sustained downpour, overwhelming everything below. The ground, already saturated from a long, wet winter, simply couldn't absorb any more water. Every new drop of rain had nowhere to go, so it quickly became runoff, rushing over the surface and pouring into streams and rivers, swelling them rapidly. All this excess water converged in the Rhine and other rivers at the same time, creating a massive, fast-moving surge that was impossible to contain. The rivers swelled far beyond their normal limits. In narrow valleys, the water had nowhere to spread out, so it rose higher and moved even faster, amplifying the destruction. Homes and infrastructure in these valleys faced the brunt of the flood's force. Thunderstorm tsunamis, a rare phenomenon, were triggered by rapid changes in air pressure as storms swept over lakes. These sudden shifts pushed water into powerful, unexpected waves. These waves crashed ashore with almost no warning, flooding lakeside land like a mini tsunami and catching residents off guard. The combination of saturated ground, relentless rain, and unique storm dynamics created the perfect conditions for disaster. It was a chain reaction, where each factor made the next one worse. Understanding these basic processes is crucial. By knowing how floods form, communities can better prepare, respond, and hopefully prevent such devastation in the future. As waters receded, a thick layer of mud and debris was left behind. The cleanup was immense, but communities rallied. Neighbors helped neighbors, and volunteers arrived from afar. Makeshift kitchens fed displaced residents and workers, while aid organizations provided support and emergency funds. Teams assessed damage and arranged temporary housing for those displaced. The process was slow, but collective effort made it manageable. The disaster exposed weaknesses in flood defenses and spurred calls for better planning and natural floodplains. The flood became a catalyst for change, inspiring a renewed sense of shared responsibility. Rebuilding together, communities laid the foundation for a more resilient future. The Great Flood of 2026 was a humbling chapter for Central Europe. It showed that even the best-prepared societies can be overwhelmed by nature's extremes. The event was a wake-up call about our changing climate and the need for adaptation. Smarter infrastructure and nature-based solutions like restoring floodplains are essential. Preparedness, having a plan, an emergency kit, and knowing evacuation routes proved vital. Communities that practiced emergency plans were more resilient. Most importantly, the flood inspired extraordinary solidarity and cooperation. As we face future challenges, we must combine science, preparation, and community spirit. Only then can we meet nature's power with resilience, wisdom, and hope.